to the next topic. The topic is understanding the attitude of Generation Y towards transport apps. The case of Dubai. The presenter is Professor Ghassan Abu-Lebdeh.
Thank you. Understanding the attitude of Generation Y towards transport applications, the case of Dubai. This is part of the master thesis work for my former graduate student, Renji Kachura. At the onset, I would like to note that none of what I present here is a view of the government of Dubai or any unit, formal unit in the United Arab Emirates. Just a bit of a background. The sustainability in general, but in the is a prime topic in the United Arab Emirates. But in particular, the city of Dubai has been doing a lot of work. A lot of it is really courageous and innovative. Some of it is starting to bear some fruits. Other is still sort of work in progress. So this work is in that general context. Many initiatives were rolled out, but in particular one was aimed at sort of converting all government services, transportation related and everything else, to make it smart, that you can sort of do it and finish it using your mobile or tablet or any other device. Many of those services were transportation specific, transportation related, and with that the government rolled out a lot of apps that were made sort of available, announced about them, and encouraged everybody to download them and use them. Based on anecdotal evidence thus far, it looks like there is progress, but we're not sure if it is really what's desired at this stage. Just to get back and sort of on this particular research, the objective was simply to investigate the impact of the RTA's mobile apps on travel behavior of Generation Y in Dubai. The RTA is the Road Transport Authority of Dubai. So think of it as the Ministry of Transport, but particularly dealing with road transport. The research question was, have the RTA's mobile-based apps brought about change in travel behavior among Generation Y in Dubai? The significance of this work is clear from a few of the points that you see here on the slide. A significant percentage of the population of Dubai is young, Generation Y. Globally, the United Arab Emirates is first in smartphone use. Generation Y in particular, and again, Generation Y, I'm referring to folks who are in the age group 18 to 34, are first in use of smart phones in the United Arab Emirates, as you can see, over 90%. However, again, based on what you observe, anecdotal evidence, it doesn't look like the behavior of this generation, at least as far as transportation is concerned, perhaps beyond, but I'll just speak about transportation. Their behavior, it does not seem to be sustainable, if you will, or it's not really pointing in the right direction. And here I'm referring particularly to use of private automobile and the excessive use of it, and the very low vehicle occupancy and such indications that sort of all point to one thing, that maybe we're not making the progress that we would like to. Studies in different parts of the world aimed at use of mobile apps indicated that actually those mobile apps can be used to influence the behavior of certain groups. And in this particular case, we found evidence that you can actually influence the behavior of Generation Y, not regarding travel in particular, but you can influence their behavior regarding many other aspects as well. So there is no reason to believe that you cannot really influence their behavior to make it more sustainable, if you will, as far as travel and transportation. There is a vision by the city of Dubai for the city to be a sustainable and smart city by 2021, and that's not really too far off. So clearly there is concern that, are we making enough progress or not? More importantly, and I have not seen enough evidence to sort of, there is no clear understanding on where the public stands, and in particular, where does Generation Y stand as far as this vision? And are they really embracing this vision, or they just think it's for somebody else? A lot of apps were rolled out. All are transportation related. Not all of them are travel related per se. If you look at the screen here to the right, you can see, for example, you can pay your, you can renew registration of your vehicle, you can pay fees, you can pay fines, you can order a taxi, you can check on the schedule of the bus or the metro, many other things that you can do it just from your mobile. So as far as accessibility and usefulness and comprehensiveness of those apps, I think it's no question that you can do just about everything you want without really having to traditionally travel to do those services. In addition, the RTA, Ministry of Transport, if you will, installed free Wi-Fi in many locations. When I say 450, that's quite a bit of coverage in the city of Dubai. So to go about this research, it's very simple. We formulated relevant hypotheses, collected data to help us deal with those hypotheses. Then we tested those hypotheses and then looked at the results and tried to make sense of them. Going a little too far here. Five hypotheses were formulated and tested. Here's just a quick run of those. The first one, Generation Y in Dubai are smartphone users and are aware of the RTA's mobile apps. Hypothesis number 2, mobile apps play important role in the transport sector and provide real-time public transport location and timing information. Number 3, services provided by the apps may have a positive impact on Generation Y's travel behavior, specifically managing their travel demands and reducing unnecessary trips or consolidating trips, if you will, especially during peak times. Hypothesis number 4, travel-related apps may serve as an appropriate tool for communicating with Generation Y by encouraging them to use smart services for trip planning, thereby reducing their private automobiles. And number 5, factors such as weather, urban form, social demographic variable, psychosocial variables, and convenience or lack of convenience when it comes to public transport promote or actually encourages the use of private automobiles. So we collected enough data, if you will, and asked a lot of questions that all aimed at addressing or answering those 5 hypotheses. The form of data was a self-administered survey, conducted that online, and we sort of sent it out using social media. Some of the questions were quantitative, some were descriptive or qualitative. We got the results, summarized them, developed contingency or pivot tables to sort of test the hypotheses or check for their significance, and then looked at the text data or categorical data and tried to sort of read through it and see what it means. I don't think you're going to follow those details. I'm not intending those details for you to look, but if you look at the top, hypothesis number 1 that stated Generation Y in Dubai are smartphone users and are aware of the RTA mobile-based apps. There are 2 parts to this hypothesis. If you look all the way at the bottom, the data proved the first part, but actually the data is conflicting with the second part. The second hypothesis, mobile apps play an important role in the transport sector by providing real-time public transport, location, timing information, so on and so forth. Again, the data proves the data that we collected proved the first part of the hypothesis, but the second part of this hypothesis actually conflicts with a lot of other results that were in the that we got. Here, for example, Generation Y rarely, this is something we found. It looks like they rarely actually use the RTA mobile apps. They prefer to use their private automobile. Simple. Number 3, both hypotheses 3 and 4 actually, the first part of both was proven, but the data unfortunately conflicted with the second part. So number 3, apps may have positive impact, yes, but then I don't know, something is missing, but those apps are not really leading to actual avoidance of travel during peak times. The apps seem to be helping in sort of enforcing the point or making the point that those apps are could serve as a tool, but then when you look at the actual use of the private automobiles, it's inconsistent. So, first half is okay. It looks like it is proven, but the second half is really conflicting what the data has showed. As to number 5, there are different parts of this hypothesis. The first part, again, it has to do with factors, whether they are actually influencing the choice of transportation. Weather conditions, I think those of you who visited Dubai know that a good part of the year, 6, 7, maybe 8 months, the weather is a bit extreme and uncomfortable, especially if you want to walk to a transit, to a bus or a metro station. So we wanted to see if actually weather conditions are a factor and whether urban travel, urban form, socio-demographic variables, and so on and so forth. The first one, again, if you look whether weather conditions were actually a factor, if you look all the way to the bottom to your right, the data actually proves the first factor. That is, weather conditions indeed is a factor in people opting for their private automobiles and not walking to buses or metro stations. The second part, also urban form, the data prove that that's an issue. And of course, when I say urban form, that's a loaded term. So you could say what is really meant by urban form. But here, just for simplicity, maybe, the mixed use is lacking. In Dubai, if you look at the land use, you will see areas where it's purely residential and then other areas that are purely commercial. So sometimes even if you want to buy a little one item, you really need to hop in your car and just drive for quite a distance to fulfill the need of that trip. So that's what we really mean here. The third factor, socio-demographic variables, and again, the data proved that this is a factor, and that has to do with Dubai is an interesting place in many respects. 85% probably the population is expatriates, and among those, there is a good number of workers, construction workers and otherwise, who probably don't have a choice in terms of travel. They probably are transit captive and so on and so forth. So that is a factor in choosing or not choosing to drive. As to the fourth variable, social variable, that doesn't seem to be an issue. You can think here of psychology and trying to show off and your vehicle as a statement of your status and so on and so forth. In some places, that's a factor. I thought it was a factor in our place, but the data said no, so I'll just go by that. And finally, the last factor that has to do with the convenience, or actually lack of convenience of public transport, is a factor in people actually persisting with their private vehicles. And here I would like to note that, walking distance, for example, if in a weather like Dubai, you really need to have a very short walking distance to get to a bus or to a metro station. Otherwise, people are not going to walk more than probably 4 minutes. That's probably in other places, that's peanuts. You could walk for a lot more than that. But in extreme heat and humidity, that's a challenge. I would like to note that I think all transit stations, bus stations in Dubai are air conditioned. So I think we are just about out of time, but I'm towards the end here. So in summary, I think the data showed us that less than half of Generation Y are actually aware of RTA mobile apps. They maybe are aware of them, but they just completely are oblivious to their significance. The apps or the app users find them useful whenever they use them. And I think here the reference is to apps that are related not to driving or taking the transit, but maybe apps that will enable them to pay their fines or check on their registration and so on and so forth. 40% of the app users actually rarely use those apps. That's not really encouraging. About 75% of them either own or have access to a vehicle. And again, a lot of those folks, they really don't work. They don't have an income to really own a vehicle. That's quite a statement here. And again, from other work that we've done, car affordability or auto affordability in Dubai is probably #1 in the world. I think that's a serious issue here. At the end, I think back to our proposition, it looks like we couldn't sort of say yes to that question that we sort of set out to answer. The apps, though, even though they're not changing the behavior, I think still they have the potential to change that behavior. Weather conditions and other factors maybe are issues, but they're not really the whole story. With that, I will stop. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And this is really very interesting in a sense that we are talking here about competing with investment or capital or whatever, isn't it? And from the public sector. And I'm sure this particular study is going to give lots of, answers to the questions by the government or the public. Can I ask for a couple of questions only, please? Yep.
Economic development. I've been to Dubai for quite a few times, and I agree with what we heard from you in terms of the summary of your research. One part of the research I didn't hear, or maybe I missed it. Did you, the people that were interviewed, were they also asked about the quality of the public apps? Were they happy about them? Were they expecting something else? It could be that they're just simply not interesting enough for the young to tune in.
Thank you. That's an excellent question. We did. There were other questions. This is just part of the thesis of Renji. But we did ask some questions as to whether they find them useful, they are easy to understand and all that. And that didn't seem to be an issue. We couldn't, from at least the responses, we could not tell that it's actually the design or the quality of the app that's really standing in the way.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Yeah, just waiting for the microphone, but it's okay. It's a very interesting finding, actually, because it's counterintuitive as well. I just wonder if there is a cultural element into that. Have it been, investigated as part of your questionnaire? Because, probably people look down upon people who use public transport, so they are not interested. Is there any such factor?
And another excellent question. I think there is that factor, but if you are to really ask people, again, from anecdotal evidence, from just discussions with students and colleagues and friends and all that, I think if you, for example, ride your bicycle, that's just not really a good sign. That's just not for you as a professional, all that. Bicycles are only for people who cannot afford vehicles and all that. I ride my bicycle on campus, and I more than once actually was knocked right to the ground. And they just didn't even bother to stop. I think, so the answer to your question, and again, I don't have evidence to it, but I'll just answer it based on what I know and have seen and sort of heard. There is a cultural element. And I think it's using transit, using the bus, using the metro, elsewhere, I think is just, people don't think about it, and I think it makes a lot of sense if you want to think economics, environment, and all that. But owning a nice vehicle and driving your vehicle and so on and so forth, it's also a sign of status and maybe looked upon sort of positively in our context. And I think at the end of the day, I think a lot of people are sort of part of where they are, and therefore I think when they decide what mode of transport to take, they probably are conscious of what those who are around them think. Long answer to a short question, but I think the answer is yes.
Thank you. We would like to get another one. This is the last question, please. Oh, hang on, because we are having some, time constraints, so see how it goes. Please go ahead.
The same point of view. So I think the three main points is cultural problem. Indeed, Arab culture, it's not for public transport. The second point is we have the same case in Algeria, where the government is subsidizing the oil. As long in Algeria, the price of 1 liter of oil or petrol or diesel is more expensive than 1 liter of mineral water. So with this case, everyone is going for car rather than public transport. And the third point is as long as a weather problem as well. So I can share your point of view. So in Algeria, the government is providing all public transport, but people are reluctant for using them because for first, being independent, second is cultural problem, and the third, as long as the government, the price of oil is cheap in Dubai and in Algeria, as I said, it's cheaper than a liter of mineral water, so that's the reason why people, they would never use, or we can't influence their choice to use public transport. So it's more than comment than question, sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm afraid our reporter wants me to ask another person to, ask your question, please. Thank you. Short, please. Yeah.
It's me.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Amos Wamatapurai. I work with the United Nations here in this building. I have three questions. Thank you for the presentation from United Arab Emirates. I always stop there on my way to the Pacific. First question. The apps, I believe United Arab Emirates it's rich enough to provide and develop these RTA-based apps for free to the users. Second question would be, in the context of this meeting that we are here today, public-private partnerships for implementation of the 2030 Agenda on Sustainable Development, I want to see how it fits into this whole debate. For instance, is Uber there? You know the Uber? Is Uber in United Arab Emirates? Is there a partnership between RTA and Uber, for instance? Or are you looking into this? Or given Uber's track record, you might not want it to be there. I don't know. And last question would be, how do you put these research results into public policy? Translate them into public policy?
Thank you. I'll start from the last and go backward.
Yeah, I think since we are really running out of time, just you can go for third one, please.
I think if I'm to take anything from this to the government, clearly we need more a stick than the carrots that we're giving. I think we need a lot of disincentives to make owning and operating a vehicle, make it more expensive. It's I think, goes without saying. So this is, I think, an evidence that we need to do more on that. And until we make the utility of the vehicle so sort of expensive, people are just not going to switch. To the second question, yes, there is a partnership between the government of Dubai and Uber. So Uber operates in Dubai, but not the form that we are familiar here. It's different. I can explain it some other time. We don't have time for it. But there is that. And as to the first one, how does it fit? I thought it fits very well. I think we can talk about sustainability and push for it, but I think if the facts on the ground are pointing that we're not making enough progress towards our goals and objectives, then clearly we need to really see what's not working and fix it. So the results are there, and I think the government can take them and make whatever, but I think they're very useful to point to the fact that we're not seeing as many or as much progress as we would like, at least with respect to this group of folks, Generation Y.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So please remember, if we all help and do a little bit, it will make a big difference.